Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and the Legends, and it is Monday. We're back again to analyze the results of the Star City Games Open Baltimore and the Standard Classic that occurred this weekend, with a special focus on some of the new cards, of course, from Dominaria, as we now have moved into the second week of this new standard. Quickly before we get started, though, just a really fast reminder, if you check out the description below, you'll find a few ways to help support what we do here at the channel, one of which is Patreon. You're also going to find a link to products on Amazon. If you make any purchases on Amazon, once you go through that link, we'll get a small percentage no matter what it is. Then finally, Flipside Gaming, still offering a promo code for our viewers. Hopefully you can save some cash while you support the channel. And as always, thank you not only to the folks that look at those links, but to all of you viewers. Y'all make the channel what it is. Thank you, and let's get into it. All right, let's start off with Star City Games Open event. Now, this was a team event. Teams were playing a standard deck, a modern deck, and a legacy deck. So even though this was a larger tournament than the Classic we're going to look at in a few moments, this particular tournament does have decks that may have got boosted a little bit by the modern and legacy decks, so just keep that in mind. However, when you look at the top 8, it looks like a lot of what we've been seeing from week 1, but then expounded upon. You have a Constrictor deck still doing well. We saw that in the first week. A new deck coming in second, though, which we didn't see in last week's video, and that's a blue-white mid-range deck. It does have many similar elements to the control decks, but it does go a little more creature-heavy. We'll see that in a few moments. Now, coming in 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, white-black aggro. Okay, this is a deck that a lot of people were speculating was going to be good. It didn't put up a good result in week 1. Didn't take it long, though. Week 2, not only did it get 4 top 8s here, but it was the winning deck of the Classic, which we'll see in a moment. Number 7 is that blue-white historic deck, which really took kind of the last tournament by storm, showing up with a lot of Dominaria cards. And finally, mono green aggro. A lot of people worried we didn't see that put up a good result at the Star City Games Open and Classic last weekend, because that was a deck that almost felt like it almost had to be in the meta. Well, here it is, doing much better this weekend in this particular event. And it did great last week in small events. I'm not really worried about that deck, and we'll take a closer look at it. So let's look at some of these deck lists. Starting with the winning deck, which is a Constrictor deck. So this deck and some of the other Constrictor decks do feel like they're taking a few more chances this week with cards from Dominaria as opposed to week 1. Some of the cards that you see in the deck list this time around include Llanowar Elves, which is all over the place this week. We didn't see a whole lot of it last week. Adventurous Impulse, and then finally Woodland Cemetery for some mana smoothing. In the sideboard, you even found a copy of Cast Down. Coming in second was the blue-white mid-range deck, and like I said a moment ago, there are elements that are very reminiscent of the control build that we saw last week, and which we'll be seeing a little bit later in the video too. But this one is more creature-heavy, but it is running, again, a lot of cards from Dominaria. In the main, you find Karn, Teferi, Lyra, Shalai, History of Benalia, Seal Away. I will say History, a little bit less play in week 2 compared to week 1, but it's still around in pretty good numbers. In the sideboard, you'll find Wrath Capuchin, Fall of the Thran, a couple copies of that, and another copy of Seal Away. Alright, the white-black aggro deck put up huge results this week. We'll look at the one that came in 3rd place. And the deck list, maybe nothing too out of the ordinary if you've been following some of the smaller tournaments from week 1. This deck looked good. It finally put up some huge results in a major tournament now. Didn't take it very long, obviously, second week. There's some light knight synergies here, although I wouldn't call this a knight tribal deck. It really is a well-rounded aggro deck, though. Let's look at the Dominaria cards that you can find in it. Karn, of course, you can't play Magic without Karn nowadays. Knights of Malice, Lyra, History of Benalia, and then Isolated Chapel to smooth things out. Next, in 7th place, we'll look at that blue-white historic deck. Now, this is very similar to the build that we saw last weekend. Super Dominaria-centric deck here. You're going to find 10 cards in the main from the new set. Teferi, Merfolk Trickster, Lyra, Wrath Capuchin, Shalai, History of Benalia, Seal Away, Blink of an Eye, Wizard's Retort, and finally, Memorial to Genius. Out of the sideboard, another copy of Teferi, because, you know, why not? Alright, I know there's a lot of fans of this one. This is the mono green aggro deck. And even though we didn't talk about it in last Monday's video because we didn't see a big result of the Star City Games events, it was doing well in small events, PTQs, Magic Online, and such, so I'm not shocked to see it have a better week now. I will say, though, a lot of the deck lists that we saw last week in the smaller events were a little more vehicle-centric. In fact, I was calling those decks mono green vehicles. Don't know if I would call this one mono green vehicles, although there is a vehicle element to it with 3 Heart of Kirin's and an Aethersphere Harvester, and in the sideboard even you find 2 Sky Sovereigns. But overall, I would say this feels a little more of a well-rounded aggro deck as opposed to just a vehicle focus. And as you can see here, it's using a lot of cards that already existed before Dominaria, but some of the Dominaria cards really tied this deck together. Those cards would be mostly Llanowar Elves and Steel Leaf Champion. Kind of the no-brainer once we saw those cards revealed, right? And Woodland Cemetery is there for some smoothing to help you out with your Scrap Heap Scroungers. And some of the builds are running a few black cards out of the sideboard too, although you didn't really see that in this particular build. One last deck I wanted to show you from this tournament was a 10th place deck. This is Green-White Legends, and I just thought it was unique. We're going to see a Bant kind of mid-rangey deck as well a little bit later, which isn't too different than this one, but again, I thought it was interesting. Running cards, of course, from Dominaria like Llanowar Elves, Lyra, and Shalai, Voice of Plenty. Alright, now let's look at the Star City Game Standard Classic results. Now, this is a smaller tournament, however, it is just Standard that we're looking at now. Coming in first, again, like I said earlier, White-Black Aggro, having an amazing, amazing week. Now, beyond that, though, some different stuff. Red-Black Aggro coming in second as well as third. We saw that deck do well in week 1, carries over into week 2. We get a Historic deck coming in 4th, Mono Green Aggro coming in 5th and 6th, Historic back in 7th, and then the Blue-White Control deck coming in at 8th. So we saw a lot of these style of decks already, but let's look at some of the ones we did not look at. Beginning with the 2nd place Red-Black Aggro deck. So not too different from last weekend's builds for this particular archetype, but I will say one difference is they're starting to maybe try to run Karn a little more frequently. There's a Karn in the main here. Goblin Chainwhirler, though, was the big story when it comes to these mono-red aggro, red-black aggro, and mono-red gift decks. This card really made them even more competitive than they were, if you can believe that. 8th place, the Blue-White Control, deck that did very well in week 1, and we saw a deck that was at least reminiscent of it earlier, of course. This one, though, running a lot less creatures, just 4 Torrential Gearhulks when you look at creatures in the main. Other than that, it's all about control, a very traditional control build, as a matter of fact. This is not an approach build. And so we'll have to kind of see which one becomes the more popular one, or maybe the more powerful one, when it comes to either traditional control elements or the approach control decks. So far, the first couple weeks, the traditional has been winning out a little bit, but approach is still hanging in there. When it comes to Dominaria cards, we got Teferi, Seal Away, Blink of an Eye, Memorial to Genius. In the sides, you'll find Karn, Lyra, and another copy of Seal Away. Alright, last deck I wanted to show you was a 9th place Bant mid-range deck. And even though this is a little bit different, let's be honest, it has a lot of the same elements we've seen in all of these decks pretty much. And there's a certain amount of cards that do feel like they are just sort of rising to the top, right? And those cards from Dominaria are Karn, Teferi, Llanowar Elves, Lyra, Seal Away. This deck's playing all of them. And oh yeah, don't forget, Shalai, Voice of Plenty in the sideboard. So those do feel like the cards that had the biggest week this week. Now, History of Benalia is another one that's not in this particular deck that looks like it's still doing very well. Goblin Chainwhirler, of course, for a different type of deck. But you're starting to see certain cards repeat over and over and over again and starting to really begin to form what will be this meta. So I'm really excited to see what happens next week and then moving forward into early June with the Pro Tour. And we'll just keep following everything, let you know how it goes. Later in the week, we will be doing a special edition of the Market Watch again to follow the trends and pricing after this weekend of events, once everything settles down a little bit. But hey, until then, thanks for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.